Lucky you!
Best 36 holes in golf.
You tuned in to Alternate Shots Podcast,
Marnie's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Barkeys, Sandy's,
poker,
Bond, James Bond.
horse racing,
I'm all in.
great movies.
Alfred Hitchcock.
We have no script.
And down the stretch they come.
We're glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Billy. Well, we've been out playing matches, walking dogs, having grandchildren, barbecues, everything but doing the podcast, and people have been bugging us. When are we coming back? We're back. And not only are we back, we're going to do back-to-back 16 West and 17 West. What do you think of that?
Hopefully, we won't lose a ball on either of those holes. And as you say, we've been away. I just came back from the historic Wingfoot Invitational member guest, which was kudos again. They ran a great event. Al Leon does a great job there. Mike Gilmore at the microphone. Dan Hicks and Jimmy Roberts spoke. It was a wonderful night in the tradition of Wingfoot. So let's go. Those two holes killed me, by the way, in the matches.
Well, let's cue up 16 West. So you just finished the shortish, quote unquote, for members, it's not that short. You bust a drive on 15 and you're still hitting a hybrid. Maybe you get down the bottom of the hill this time of year and you can hit a 7-iron. Now you've come across and you're coming back to the clubhouse. The last 3 holes, maybe the toughest par 4s, finishing in major championship golf. And 16 West is a member par 5, but it's in any tournament where there's scratch golfers involved, it's played as a par 4. But when you and I joined this club, and even before that, when I was a kid, there was basically one way to, or 2 ways to play it. It was about a 450-yard, 460-yard par 5. It's been lengthened maybe 30 yards. I wouldn't say it's been lengthened 50 because there's just so much property back there.
Right.
You got to play it right. With a balata ball, and you had to maybe hit a 3-wood in there, or some guys would hit it right with a good hook and get 210 or 220, so they hit a 4-iron in there. But very few guys 30 years ago in the 90s ever hit over those trees or toward 13 East. Now we're coming back. 13 East is to the left of 16 West, right?
Correct. And if you're up on that green, sometimes even today you'll hear a 4 where somebody yanked it in that direction.
Yeah.
But it's not always a wise move to go that way, unless you're Joey Somers, who I saw one day hook his ball over there. So it was sitting on a side hill on the left of 13 East. He hit some kind of hybrid all the way down the left side with a little cut and rolled over the back of the green. So now he was on the side hill back right of 16's green. And then he chipped it in for eagle. So if you're Joey Somers, you can play the hole whichever way you like.
You know, we as kids, I think I was playing with Bart McDade and maybe J.P. O'Hara or Chip Eckert or somebody like that. And we're standing up on the 13th green. And the other course, there was sort of an outing going on, a small outing. This is back in the mid-1970s. And they had as their professional Gary Player, who was in the prime of his game. And well, what happened to Gary Player, sort of what happened, like you described with Joe Somers, except he hit it sort of to the right of 13 East green, but hooked it. And he was in the little fairway bunker that's in front of 13 East green, which is still there today.
I was in it recently.
Now, if you're there and you're playing towards 16, you're not, Houdini can't even see a way to the 16 from there. And this is 50 years ago, okay, when there was a lot more trees at Wingfoot. There's still a lot more trees at Wingfoot, and they're still there. Gary Player's in there, and he's looking at the shot, and we're on the green. We're like, go for it, go for it, go. And this is back, the Ginty. In those days, he was playing a Ginty. It had the little ridge on the bottom, the small head, like a precursor to a hybrid.
It was like a 7-wood.
So what he did is he turned 90 degrees and hit a wedge right into the middle of the fairway on 16. And we said, what are you doing that for? He says, fellas, we play metal play out here. And that's the play 100 times out of 100. And we said, come on, put another ball down there and give it a try. And he, after a bunch of urging, he said, okay. He said to his rabbit, his caddy, put a ball down in the same lie, and he looked up at those trees that are below 17 West and in front of the 16 West green.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here goes nothing. And he pulled off one of these high floating cut shots, and it ended up within a yard of the front edge of the green. And he
Wow.
turned at us with a wry smile. He says, "Fellas, in competition, that doesn't happen."
No, unless
So
you're playing
therefore,
with Chip Archer, then you double.
yeah. But that's the thing is, in over the last since 2000, well, in all the opens in 29 and 57, the Open in the 50s, the 74 Open, the 84 Open, and as you said, the PGA, those trees and the ball didn't go, you didn't go together. You had to play to the right.
Yep.
But that's changed. Or you've played with your brother, your cousin Owen would go over there, but now that's where they play it. Now they just tee it up and they launch it over the side of 13 East, maybe even with the fade, and they're playing a 7, 8, or a 9 iron, maybe a pitching wedge into that green.
It's true. I
It's
saw my cousin Owen hit one up over that tree. Ball was still going up when it over the tree. He had, I think, 118 yards in. It was an amazing drive. Where the rest of us are hitting 3 woods or 5 woods in hopes of getting on the green. He's sitting there with a 9 iron.
The other thing that I remember, I think Billy Harmon told us. Billy Harmon watched Jay Haas play a lot of holes in the 1974 U.S. Open. Now, Jay Haas, he qualified for the weekend in the 1974 U.S. Open. I believe he was an amateur back then. I was lucky enough to see him play up close and personal because I caddied for Bob Golby, and in the Wednesday practice round, Jay Haas played with us, and I got to see this young man. Swing hasn't changed much. 50 years later, it hasn't changed. He actually had a hole-in-one on 7 West, which I think I talked about before in that practice round. But Billy Harmon came up to him, and I think Billy was looking to caddy for him, right? And Jay was no BS. He said, "Well, what'd you think?" He said, "Well, I watched you. You had a nice birdie on the 16th hole." And he said, "Well, I know you watched a lot of me play because that's the first time. That was in the second round. That was the first birdie he had in 36 holes."
Right. I remember Billy telling us that. Yeah.
And he still made the cut.
He made the cut.
The cut had to be like 10 or 11 or 12 over, something like that, pretty high.
Yeah, but that hole, you've just played 15, which I think is one of the best holes in all of golf. And if you've played it well, you're all psyched up because now you're getting to maybe what would be considered an easy hole, certainly relatively speaking. But there's room for mistakes there. You hit out the broccoli stalk. Remember the tree out there that looks like a stalk of broccoli, and you cut it and you end up over on the right side, sometimes with a gnarly lie. So yeah, let's get tough here. Maybe I can hit a low cut and run up onto the green, and you end up in that green side bunker. Now what do? Do you hit a gap wedge? You hit a sand wedge? You got like a 40 or 50 yard sand shot, and anything can happen at that point for people like me. So
the 2006 U.S. Open, the one that Mickelson had kind of like in his hands for a while, he was standing on 16 West in the final round with 3 holes to play at 3 over par, which doesn't sound like great, but 5 over won it. So if he makes a par on 16, 17, and 18, he wins.
yeah.
What happened to him is I believe he was in the right rough. I don't think he had that bad a lie. So he had an iron, and the pin was in the front. And what he did is he hit his iron a little fat, and it came up a full club short, semi-plugged in that front bunker, and he was unable to get it up and down. And he's got a great bunker game, as we all know. He was unable to make 4 there. So now he's 4 over. I think he parred 17, and then we know what happened on 18. But
I have to tell you, one day I was out there with my brother, and he had 186 yards into that green, and he was down on the left side. He said, "Oh, what the heck, let's try this." And he yanked out his rifle shafted putter. And as God is my witness, he knocked it on the green to about 3 feet and knocked the putt in. So 186 yard 2 putt. No one ever before or ever again will do that.
So he made 3.
Made a 3 with a 2 putt.
The only thing that somebody could do better, and we'll have to live a long time to see it, is be in a relatively same position and make it from 180
Yeah,
yards.
and probably not with a putter.
Yeah, it's a wonderful hole for all levels of skill. The club champion at Winged Foot for many years was a guy named Ray Darmstadt. He didn't hit it quite long. He hit it, even in his prime, he probably hit it 230, 240, maybe 250 if he was a little younger. And he would play that shot in front of the bunker. He would lay up to the 60, 70-yard shot. He was a fabulous wedge player. And what he wasn't, if he didn't hit a perfect wedge shot in there, he could make a 15 or 20 footer against anybody. And that's how he played it. He would hit even many cases if he was 210, 220, he would take something to lay up so that he didn't get in that bunker. Because I think he saw that bunker, he said, I can't make better than five.
It's amazing how your game, when you're that good a putter, like if you can putt like Clowie or somebody like that, it has to take a load off because you're never out of the hole. A regular putter like me, if I'm not on the green in regulation, I'm struggling the rest of the way. But someone who can putt as well as Clowie or some of these other guys, Jimmy Graham, they can recover because they know as soon as they get up there, they're very live to make the putt.
Well, Jimmy Graham played with Andrew Sabota in the Anderson and won it. He's won everything at Winged Foot. And I think he was instrumental in making some fours coming down 16, 17. I know he got it up and down for a 4 on 17. What I do recall, though, I'm going to say, so Shane and my son Robbie are about 35 or so. So it has to be about 16 years ago. I saw Shane hit this towering high. It was almost a duck hook. And I was like, wonder where that ball's going. He aimed it sort of down 14 west, 15 west, 14 west green. He sort of aimed it at that and hit this boomerang shot. We get down there. He's just in that light rough down there, about 125 or 130, had no more than a wedge.
Yeah.
That was the first time I went, holy cow. You saw that with Owen, but this was and what a different hole if you're hitting your second shot as a wedge versus a 3-wood or a long iron.
Yeah, especially based on your expectations on the tee. I mean, anybody with a 12 handicap or lower is thinking I can birdie this hole when they're standing on the tee. And again, if you've come off 15 after having a successful hole, you're like, let's go. Of course, if you got eaten alive by 15, which can happen, now you're saying I need to catch back up with this. I need a rebound here. So it does play with your head a little bit because you have, as opposed to some of the holes where you have negative expectations, you actually have a positive expectation when you stand on that tee.
Yeah, it's a little like playing 2 East or 9 West where you can sometimes get home in 2. So there's a chance for a 2-putt. I remember playing in a match with a friend of my brother-in-law's, Whitey O'Mara, and he brought a very wealthy guest to his. Whitey's in the Wall Street business, and we're playing all kinds of big bets. It's 100 degrees. It was so hot, we got the caddies carts. Everybody had carts. You couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So about the 15th hole, this Whitey's guest couldn't play the last 4 holes, and Whitey's getting killed by me. And he presses the 16th hole. Now we're playing for, I don't know, $100 or $200 a hole plus all the other bets. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want. I'm wiping the brow. I'm in better shape than he is, just barely. I could walk. And he dribbles it just past the little creek. Now the water doesn't come into play on 16.
I hope not.
I hope not. Unless you hit a dribbler. He hit a dribbler. And I'm like, okay, there's another $100 and I'm going to be up and 2 up. Well, he takes like a 6-iron, he hooks it around, puts the next one on in 20 feet and makes the birdie.
There you go.
Birdie has got new life. Okay, we're going to play this hole for $400. I'm like, okay, bring it in. Well, he was over about a 12-foot putt on 18 West. And I said, Whitey, and he turned around and he looked at me. He says, will you take 750? He wanted to surrender right there. 15th hole does give you opportunity. I think some of the trees that were taken out were great, but remember the green was bordered by two huge oaks. The one on the left, elms or oaks on hardwood trees. One on the left is still there, and you see it in the picture. It does guard the middle of the green, but
Oh
nothing.
yeah, it's going to be interesting when that tree goes. You know, that will absolutely change that hole because that tree is definitely in play very often.
Even if there was no tree there, you would have to say the chip shot's pretty hard coming from that left rough over the bunker to any of the hole locations.
Oh yes, definitely. But you some of those chip shots are created because you've banged it off the tree and dropped down there.
Where do you think is the toughest hole location on 16? And then we'll wrap this up.
Oh, 16. I don't, I think down in the front right sort of, because it brings that hellish bunker into play. So I prefer it when it's in the back. So you can roll up there and even if you're short, you can put it up there pretty close. Just got to get up the ridge. So
Yeah,
I'd say rightish.
I remember in the 84 Open, Greg Norman had three wonderful fours coming in on 16, 17, and 18. We'll talk about his 17th hole when we do 17 West. But in 16, the pin was back, but it was sort of left center on the back shelf. Oh, I'd say about 10 or 15 feet from the where you walk off up the steps to go to 17, and there's that nasty rough over there. That's where Norman was. And Norman hit a beautiful flop shot out of the thickest of rough at Wingfoot in an open condition in 84. And he made himself, I would say, a 7 or 8 footer for his first amazing par coming in.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know what happened in that open, but he had to get there by making this par in that back pin. Now
And that ball could so easily roll all the way down.
yeah, and it rolls away. That back right pin on 16 is often tough because it does roll away. I've seen some guys actually roll it off the green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it brings the right side green bunker into play when you on your approach. So
One of the hardest hole putts to read. You saw it one way go right to left, and then you hit it right to left, and it peels off to the right.
beauty of Tillinghast, you can put it 10 times. Each time you come back, it's like, what does this do? Like 15 east, right? What does it do? Very diabolical.
Well, Billy, this is the shortest of par fives among the par fives at Wingfoot. Not the shortest. For members, it's a par five. For tournament players, it's a par four. This is a great Tillinghast design. Coming back in, you've got to tighten up your socks as you come in any kind of a match for money or the U.S. Open. That's what we love about this. What are your final
Tillinghast
thoughts?
makes those par fives playable. It's one of his traits. You know, even the high handicap has a shot at birdie on his par fives.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Okay, we'll wrap this one up and we'll just tell our viewers that, look, keep an eye out quickly. You're going to see another one for 17 West. And then we're going to come out with 18 West this summer as well, because 18 West has a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah, we're going to do 17 West right now. So it's not like we wear the same clothes every day, but we'll be wearing the same clothes for the next episode.
All right, I'll give you my shirt. You give me your shirt, and then
I already lost my shirt this weekend.
Why are you laughing?
Well, at least we have the laugh to add at the end. That's what happened. Somebody changed my grip, and the next thing you know, I can't do the podcast anymore. I felt like I was in the first row of the first pew at church right during the sermon.
And your brother was poking you.
My brother was making me laugh.